At the dawn of the 20th century, China found itself in a state of turmoil, politically weakened, economically exploited, and spiritually wounded. After decades of foreign invasion, humiliating treaties, and failed reforms, a violent anti-foreign, anti-Christian uprising emerged in the heart of the Qing Empire. Known as the Boxer Rebellion, this movement was both a desperate act of resistance and a symbol of the deep unrest gripping China. Though it ended in tragedy, the Boxer Rebellion marked a critical moment in Chinese history, the last major effort to drive out foreign influence before the collapse of the Qing Dynasty. To understand the Boxer Rebellion, one must first examine the broader context of China's discontent. The Opium Wars in the mid-19th century had already opened China's ports to foreign powers. Subsequent unequal treaties allowed European nations, the United States and Japan, to carve out spheres of influence across the country, controlling trade and infrastructure, and enjoying extraterritorial rights. Foreign missionaries flooded in, converting thousands of Chinese to Christianity. To many Chinese, these missionaries disrupted local traditions and disrespected Confucian values. Converts often enjoyed legal protections that placed them above local authority, sparking resentment in rural communities. Simultaneously, China's economy was in decline. Foreign imports crippled domestic industries. Land was lost to railroads and mining ventures controlled by outsiders, and natural disasters, like the floods of the Yellow River, devastated already suffering peasants. In this climate of despair, rumors, fear, and hostility spread rapidly, especially in northern China. Many people blamed their misery on the foreign devils and their Chinese collaborators. Out of this unrest emerged a secret society originally known as the Yi Hequan, or Righteous and Harmonious Fists. The West would come to know them simply as the Boxers, named after their practice of martial arts. The Boxers combined traditional Chinese spiritual beliefs, folk magic, and anti-foreign nationalism. They believed their rituals made them invulnerable to bullets, and that divine forces would protect them in battle. Their rallying cry was, "Support the Qing, destroy the foreign." At first, the Qing court was wary of the Boxers. Their violent attacks on Christian missionaries and converts provoked foreign protests. But as the movement grew in strength, influential members of the Qing court, especially Empress Dowager Cixi, saw in the Boxers a potential tool to combat foreign intrusion. By late 1899, Boxer activity surged across northern provinces. Churches were burned, railways destroyed, and Christians murdered. Foreign powers began to demand Qing suppression of the movement, but by early 1900, the Qing government, under pressure from conservative factions, had openly embraced the Boxers. In June 1900, the Boxer Rebellion reached its climax in Beijing, where thousands of Boxers poured into the capital, supported by elements of the Qing army. Foreigners, diplomats, and Chinese Christians fled to the legation quarter, a fortified zone housing embassies from multiple Western nations and Japan. For 55 days, the legation quarter was under siege. Armed with outdated weapons, the Boxers and Qing troops tried to breach the defenses. Inside, around 900 foreigners and 3,000 Chinese Christians held out against waves of assault, dwindling supplies, and constant fear. The Qing court formally declared war on all foreign powers, a decision orchestrated by Empress Dowager Cixi. Across the empire, attacks on foreigners escalated. In Tianjin, missionaries were executed, rail lines cut, and telegraph lines severed, isolating foreign communities and halting communication. Meanwhile, the foreign powers organized a military response. The Eight-Nation Alliance, comprising Britain, France, Germany, Russia, Japan, the United States, Italy, and Austria-Hungary, launched a combined military expedition to relieve the besieged legations and suppress the uprising. In August 1900, the Allied forces launched a coordinated assault on Beijing. Despite fierce resistance from Boxer fighters and Qing troops, the superior firepower and organization of the foreign armies proved overwhelming. On August 14, 1900, the Eight-Nation Alliance captured Beijing, ending the siege. Chaos ensued. Allied troops looted palaces, destroyed Boxer hideouts, and exacted brutal reprisals. Innocent civilians were caught in the crossfire. Historical records document mass executions, arson, and rape, acts condemned even by some foreign observers at the time. The Boxers scattered or were captured and executed. Some were subjected to public humiliation and beheading. The Qing government, facing complete collapse, abandoned its support of the movement and sought peace with the foreign powers. In September 1901, the Qing Empire signed the Boxer Protocol, another humiliating treaty in a long line of subjugation. The terms were severe. A massive indemnity of 450 million taels of silver was to be paid over 39 years, with interest. Foreign troops would be stationed permanently in Beijing and along key routes. Chinese officials who supported the Boxers were to be punished or executed. Fortifications around Beijing were dismantled. The Qing government was forced to issue formal apologies to foreign nations. The Boxer Protocol further eroded China's sovereignty and deepened national humiliation. It drained state finances, fostered resentment, and exposed the Qing dynasty's complete inability to defend the nation. The Boxer Rebellion was a failure militarily, but its psychological and political impact was immense. It demonstrated the depth of anti-foreign sentiment in China and the fragile state of the Qing regime. In response to the disaster, the Qing court finally attempted real reform. The late Qing reform movement introduced modern schooling, abolished the imperial examination system, and proposed constitutional changes. But it was too little, too late. In 1911, just a decade after the Boxer Rebellion, the Xinhai Revolution toppled the Qing dynasty, ending over 2 millennia of imperial rule. Many historians argue that the Boxer Rebellion was a critical turning point, a last, desperate attempt to resist modernity and foreign influence that ultimately hastened the fall of the old order. The uprising also had global ramifications. It solidified foreign control over China, expanded missionary influence, and created a deep sense of mistrust between China and the West. The United States later used part of its indemnity payments to fund the Boxer Indemnity Scholarship Program, sending Chinese students to study in American universities. A small gesture that had a surprisingly positive long-term effect on Sino-American relations. The Boxer Rebellion was not just a violent uprising, it was a national awakening. Though fueled by superstition and failed in execution, it symbolized a people's longing to reclaim dignity and sovereignty in the face of imperialist exploitation. In the eyes of modern China, the Boxers are seen with mixed emotions, as misguided warriors but also as patriots who dared to stand against overwhelming odds. Today, their legacy echoes in China's emphasis on national strength, unity, and the pursuit of a world where it is no longer bullied or dominated by foreign powers. The Boxer Rebellion was a spark in the dark, a chaotic and tragic chapter, but one that ultimately helped ignite the movement toward a modern, independent China.